recording this meeting in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order number 202.1. This meeting is being conducted via Zoom. That link has been provided to the public so they can view the meeting. And we have confirmed that the feed is active and working. I have confirmed with Janet, our town clerk, that the meeting has been duly noticed and legal notice requirements fulfilled. Notice has been placed on the Town of Lewisboro website and included in the email distributions from the town. With me on this Zoom conference meeting for the Town of Lewisboro are members of the town board: Richard Sclarin, Jane Cribbins, Tony Gonsalves, and Dan Welsh. We have a quorum and can vote on any matters that come before the board. In addition, we have Town Attorney Greg Fulchetti, Town Clerk Janet Donahue, and Joel Smith, Facilities Maintenance Director. At the public comment periods, we ask only that the following persons be permitted to speak: residents of the Town of Lewisboro, Katona Lewisboro School District, owners of property in the Town of Lewisboro, employees of the Town of Lewisboro. If you want to speak at the public hearing or make a public comment, please raise your hand at the appropriate time. To do that, if you are on Zoom, put your cursor at the bottom of the window and you should see an image of people labeled participants. Click on that to get a panel on the right-hand side with icons at the bottom. You can then click Raise Hand. Participants who have raised their hand will show up on the host screen in the order that they raised their hand. The host will then unmute you and tell you that you have the floor. You may also have to unmute yourself if your microphone isn't active. We are also asking that your video be off during the duration of the meeting and only turned on when invited to speak. If you have dialed in on a phone, you can raise your hand to indicate you want to talk by pressing *9. We will then ask people to give their name and which hamlet they live in upon entry, and to keep their comments to 2 minutes. Our town clerk will keep time, and you will hear a timer at the end of the 2 minutes. If someone is disrespectful or uses profanity at this meeting, they will be asked to leave the virtual meeting just as they would be asked to leave a physical meeting. Please remember that your camera is on and profanity will not be tolerated in any form, including gestures and acronyms. We also ask that your comments be limited to issues and not be attacks on individuals. Now, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, what did I drop? All right. I'd like to open a public hearing regarding the wetlands and watercourses proposed local law number 6 for the year 2021. This proposed law makes some amendments to the last one we passed at the request of the planning board. Does anybody wish to speak?
I have Elio Moschetta's hand is up, so I'll invite him to unmute. Elio?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, off topic, but I have to cut out. I just want to remind everybody, Monday, May 31st, 12 o'clock, We'll be gathering at the People's Flagpole in front of the townhouse to remember our vets for Memorial Day and those who have served. I encourage everyone to join. It's a great day. Even though we're not having a parade, it's okay. Just as a day of remembrance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elio. It appears no hands are up. Peter?
In that case, I'd like to propose that we close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Well, while we have a moment, could I just ask Greg to give an overview, very basic overview about what our proposed law is looking to do here?
What, the one that we've just passed?
We didn't just pass it. We just
We
voted
just-
on
public
it
hearing.
coming out of the hearing.
I'll go through it, but.
I'm happy to do it if.
All right,
So,
you can do it willingly.
At your April 23rd meeting, you passed some revisions to the Wetlands Law, Chapter 217, with respect to adding a group of permissible activities and adding and basically making it a little simpler to conduct activities that may be within a buffer area. And that was at the recommendation of the planning board after the initial draft. Prior to the passage, we did get a late note from the planning board from their most recent meeting that had suggested 3 or 4 more minor substantive edits. And what those are for for 1, 2, 3 sections of the enabled or the permitted activities or the non-permitted activities, and 2 for the permitted. And basically a clarification that for Chapter 217(5)(b)(12), it only permits 1 shed of 144 square feet in footprint. The prior version just said shed or sheds, I believe. That's clarifying that it's only permitting 1. It also permits a deck attached to a single family residence, provided that it's less than 500 feet or less than square feet of total area. And it also permits construction of a fence for a single family residence, provided that hand dug support posts are utilized. So those are the 3 things that they suggest to be clarified in terms of activities that are allowed without a permit. 2 other subsections will be under what you call regulated or permitted activities, and one of which is construction of a deck in excess of 500 square feet is now a permitted, meaning requires approval activity, again, requiring it to be attached to a single family residence, utilizing hand dug support posts and footings, and no machine activity. That's 217(5)(c)(1)(i), and 217(5)(c)(1)(j) is construction of a covered porch within the control area, as long as it's a minimum of 50 feet from the wetland itself and no more than 500 square feet in total area. And those are the 5 modifications that the planning board had recommended off of the original law that we did not incorporate into the April 23rd legislative act that we would be considering tonight.
So we're increasing permissible activities or decreasing the amount of items that you can do that you don't require a permit for?
I think we're clarifying the ones that don't require the permit, and we are adding 2 more activities that will require regulation or permit issuance. That's how I clarify it. Okay.
Thank you.
Hope that was clear enough. Sorry.
Thanks for that, Greg.
All right, thank you, Greg. Granted that I had to ask you for clarification before the meeting, I think it's a good thing that you provided it during the meeting.
It was a good question you asked. So if you're going to act on it, just please make the motion 2 parts, that it's a part 2 action under seeker, and that you'd conceivably, I would assume you're moving to notice it or to pass it as noticed and published.
Yes, can I propose, which do I do first, the part 2 action under seeker or the law?
You do the seeker first in the order of the
Okay,
resolution. That's the
I
smartest thing to
propose
do.
we adopt the part 2 action under seeker to allow this law to move forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to propose that we adopt the law that we just held a hearing on. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to open the first public comment period. Barbara Mangione.
Yep, hold on, just getting my timer ready.
Sorry,
That's okay. I'm just getting ready here. Barbara, I'm asking you to unmute and you have 2 minutes.
I believe I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I just want to say something about new business. You're going to be discussing how to utilize the American Rescue Act funds later on. I know this is totally a board discussion, but as a long-term resident, I'm hoping that some of these funds will go for a couple of major items, or at least be divvied up in a way where these issues are included, which would obviously be Oak Ridge Water. Also infrastructure. I believe the roads really need a good portion of these funds, including the roads entering into our parks. I've been at Fox Valley, and yesterday I was over at the town park, and those roads are really very rutted and bad. And lastly, something that I've heard about also at the Parks and Rec Advisory Council meetings, as far back as last year when they gave their wish list for their budget, would be the pool house. I know their real wish list would be a totally new pool house, which would be way too much money perhaps, but maybe do some upgrades that are so sorely needed by them in that facility. I just also want to say quickly, thank you so much to the Lions and to the police department and to the South Salem Fire Department and all our other committees and councils that worked on that event yesterday. My daughter and I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Barbara.
That was a great event, by the way.
Next, I'm asking Sam Z to unmute. Sam.
Hi, Sam Sapiro from South Salem. In 2020, we spent months debating the language of our town's welcome resolution, including our official support of Black Lives Matter as an organization, not just a statement of racial equality. Those who were opposed to including BLM were characterized as ignorant at best, racist at worst. In light of the recent conflict between Israel and Palestine, BLM's official Twitter declared that it stands in solidarity with Palestinians and called itself a movement committed to ending settler colonialism in all forms and will continue to advocate for Palestinian liberation. Other than one retweet of someone else's statement condemning anti-Semitic violence, there have been no response by the organization to the violent anti-Jewish attacks across the country, including those in New York City. Our state's Democratic government leaders have also been noticeably silent. In the last week, there have been multiple incidences of Jewish men and women being attacked and beaten on the streets of New York City, where many of our town's residents frequent. Given the amount of time and attention dedicated to national racial justice initiatives, and that the only documented hate crimes committed in Lewisboro have been those against Jews, such as the graffitied swastikas in years past, it's my hope that the board will publicly condemn these acts of anti-Semitism. It's also my hope that the board members, like Ms. Crimmins, who play an active role in groups such as John Jay United for Racial Justice, are using their positions to combat even the most subtle anti-Semitism by breaking with the narrative of groups such as BLM to speak against the labeling of Israelis as oppressors, colonists, and aggressors, as this characterization serves only to embolden those who target Jews. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Next, I'm asking Marissa Beatty to unmute. Marissa?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to take a minute and talk about the annual drinking water quality report for 2020 that Oak Ridge received in their water bill this past weekend. I was taking a look at it and I noticed that the dates of the samples range from 9/25/2018 to 4/19/2019. Those are for every for things simple uranium to chloride, sodium, manganese, zinc, and other contaminants. None of the information that I have has any current data for our current water quality at Oak Ridge. I'm a little concerned because as of right now, it's 2021 and we should be getting a report for 2021, not things that are being tested from 2018 and 2019. This is completely unacceptable. You have an obligation to provide us with real accurate water samples and water quality reports. I would like to see a copy as well as a bunch of my neighbors. If you can put that on your fancy new website, that would be really, really great. And again, we're talking about the water, the American Rescue money. We really need clean water at Oak Ridge as well as Meadow Pond. And Vista certainly doesn't need another gas station at the Vista Market. We have enough contaminants in our water. We don't need any more. Thanks.
Okay, thank
Peter,
you,
can I
Melissa.
just clarify a point about that water quality report to Marissa, if you don't mind?
Okay.
Yeah. So Marissa, I'll have to look at that report in detail, but the information that's shown is based on the test plan that's also on the website. So you have those older tests in there because that's when they were last done. Not every tests are done quarterly or even annually. We need to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. But you know, if you have any concerns specific to those tests, you can certainly email me and I'll go through it in detail and make sure that nothing was left out. But it should be according to the plan that's in place and published.
Okay. Next, I'm asking Letitia Stapleton to unmute.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to make a statement. I'm learning things about us in Lewisboro every day, good or bad. We can work together. We can make Lewisboro a better place for all. And we don't have to agree on everything, but we can respect one another. As long as we can be mindful of one's feelings and ideas, I know we can get all things done and we can get along well. I also wanted to mention, I finally met Simone and it was a pleasure meeting her. I had a great big hug from her and I was just proving that we can get along. We don't have to agree, but we can get along and I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Letitia. Next, I'm asking Jimbo to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm going to make it very short and sweet tonight. I was actually going to speak about communications, a lack of communications, but I do want to address one thing. I just want to thank Rich and Tony for coming out last week supporting the Lewisboro Police Department. And I would like to state for the record, again, Council Member Crimmins and Welsh, and I heard that Parsons had an excuse. He was at physical therapy, but they were nowhere to be found. This definitely speaks volumes of the type of people that were elected to sit on the town board. Also, I don't enjoy when Councilmember Crimmins just blocks herself out. I don't know what she's doing. We pay tax money and tax dollars. I'd like to see her be engaged. She's always blocking herself out on this. But I want to also say that this is an extremely important day that's coming up over this weekend. And it's not just the barbecue season or to kick off a summer season. This is Memorial Day. I know that Councilmember Crimmins really has no concept of it. But just to realize that we're there to memorialize those soldiers who've paid the ultimate sacrifice in fighting, yes, English tyranny, fascism, and communism. So I just want us to all realize how important that the blood and sacrifice of the liberties that we enjoy today. So please, everyone have a happy Memorial Day. And I would truly like if Councilmember Crimmins would not black out her screen. Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Carol Cernak. I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Carol Cernak, South Salem, New York. Once again, I'm speaking about the operations at the Salt Dome property. I would like to thank Rich and Tony for their time, endless time and lengthy meetings on site and over the phone and through email to get to the bottom of what's going on over there. I understand and would like to confirm, and I think I already have confirmed it, but I'm not sure, the current agreement with Hickory Homes has been terminated and that they are not to bring in any material from outside the Lewisboro jurisdiction. At this point, we're working on cleaning up the sight line between the cemetery and the Salt Dome and removing the mulch pile that is there. I'd also like to make everybody to confirm, to let everybody know that proper procurement for this agreement was not followed. This was never put before the citizens and the residents of the town of Lewisboro. This was an in-kind handshake agreement, and that speaks to the lack of respect that our current supervisor and highway superintendent have for every taxpaying citizen. So this brings me to think that what else is going on? What other deals have been made that haven't followed proper procurement? Everybody should speak their mind, speak their concerns, let your voice be heard, because it does matter. You may have to do it for a long time, but it does matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Next, I'm inviting Simone O'Connor to unmute.
Good evening, Simone from Vista. I want to begin really quickly with a question. The state is open. Why aren't these meetings? Why are we still on Zoom? Why can't we be together at a meeting? That's just, I guess I'm asking the wind, but hopefully soon we'll get answers. Also, I was hoping I would finally get an apology that I deserve for being called a racist. I didn't get it from the board, who sat by complicitly, not following Town Supervisor Parsons' rules that he reads every meeting into the record, that there's no name calling, et cetera, et cetera. I guess unless it's to me. I do agree. We can always agree to disagree. There's a lot of things I don't agree with that the board passes or how it's conducting business. I do agree with a lot as well. But name calling should not be tolerated. I've discussed this with two of the board members. I've discussed this with the person that called me the name, who I had never met. I was hoping today the slander would be taken back, and I'm sad that it wasn't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Next, I'm asking, next, I'm asking Robin Legenzowski to unmute.
Hi, Robin from Vista. To Greg Falchetti, please don't qualify the change in the rules as minor. You don't live in the town. You're an attorney. We don't need your opinion. They're not minor to some people. To some people, it's major. To some people, it doesn't matter, but we don't need you to qualify it with a adjective. I'd appreciate it if you stuck to the legal stuff. Also, I was upset to find out that we were told in the last board meeting that the drag queen story hour was paid for by, I think Jane said she was paying for it herself. But now we're seeing that it's co-sponsored by the Lewisboro Library. You can't just change things without telling people. We all live in this town. We pay your salaries. We elect you, and you need to keep us on top of things. If you tell us something and you change it, we need to know. You can't just, pull a fast one. People, it's a circus hour for little kids, and children should be kept out of this kind of stuff. If you want to do it on your own, fine. The library sponsoring it, not so much. Also, Jane had tried to get our town to support Black Lives Matter in our town resolution. As a woman from Jewish descent, I find it inappropriate, especially in light of all the support they're giving to Palestine and anti-Semitism. The last thing I want to say is the last thing Vista needs is another gas station. We have 2, we don't need 3. And if you want to know why, you should drive by Vista Market about 10, 11 p.m. at night and see what's going on there in the offices, which are now apartments. And if you haven't been over there at 10, 11 o'clock at night, please drive by and see if you think we should trust them with a gas station leaking toxins into the Vista water. We're contaminated enough. We do not need more contaminants in Vista. Please, it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Letitia has already spoken. So I'll let her go to public comment period 2. Owner, we need you to verify who you are and full name, please. I'm asking you to unmute. Owner, it comes up as owner. I'll ask one more time, owner.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Can I have your
Oh,
full
I'm
name,
sorry.
please?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Joe Tanzi. I'm kind of new at this, so
Hi, Joe.
please
Yep.
forgive me.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll be very quick. I'm quite familiar with the highway department, the Salt Dome area, because thank God for the highway department. I do a lot of work at Oldfield Preserve, and they allow me to get material from there to take up to work on Oldfield. I think the highway department, from what I saw a couple years ago, was typical highway department. What it looks like now, they've cleaned it up. This outfit that they have there, and I understand that they come in and they mulch everything up. I think it's a wonderful agreement that we have with them. There's no money exchanged either way. The garden club gets mulch for what they need. The recreation department gets topsoil and mulch for whatever they need. If I need mulch up at Oldfield to serve it, it's there for me. I think it's a great arrangement, and I think we should keep it. That's it. Thank you.
I think, Janet, you're muted.
Thank you. Dean, I'm asking you to unmute.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
A little difficult for me. I just want to say I had heard, and maybe Joe was just on, someone had told me, and maybe I'm wrong, that they'd been to the most recent CAC meeting, and the discussion came up that the CAC had actually recommended the same as what I did, that they thought that I'm talking about the tree ordinance as it was passed, that there's no distinction between the size of a property and the number of trees on the property with the 3 tree a year definition of clear cutting. As I said, I mentioned this to you at the public hearing when you had passed that law. And again, apparently I was told that some members or all the members of the CIC thought that maybe that was actually a mistake, that you'd made a technical mistake or an inadvertent error. And either way, I still consider or asking that you guys consider making a technical change and changing the ordinance back to that the clear cutting of 3 trees a year be somehow tied and changed and raised depending on the size of the property and or the percentage of trees existing on the property. Not only that do I think this is common sense, but it also reflects every other tree ordinance. I defy anyone to find a tree ordinance that does not do it that way. So hopefully you might consider doing a technical change on just that one part of it. I do appreciate, now that you've passed the wetlands changes, I will say, I think those are all very, very common sense. In the same spirit, I'd also ask you to consider something different on the wetlands ordinance. The New York State DEC regulates wetlands of 12.4 acres or larger, and they place a 100-foot buffer around the wetland. Our town, along with North Salem, extends that buffer to 150 feet. In Lewisboro, over the years, it's really oftentimes resulted in almost an absurd result where a tiny little wetland can have a 150-foot buffer put around it and make much of a homeowner's property useless or under very severe limitations on development. North Salem, which is the only other town around here with a 150-foot buffer, does not regulate wetlands of 1/4 acre or smaller. Maybe that's a little larger than what considering, but a small threshold of a smaller amount could make sense and save a lot of paperwork and not really hurt the environment in any way. If you look at our stormwater regulations, which are based on the state model, you don't need a stormwater permit, I believe, if you're not disturbing or if you're disturbing less than 5,000 feet. Putting a minimum size wetland like North Salem might be a very reasonable change to also take further burden off of our regulators. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dean. And that appears to be it.
I'd like to close the public comment for the first public comment period and move on to communications.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, communications. First of all, I would like to congratulate the people responsible for the Sala party, basically, and fundraiser at the town park. I thought it was a magnificent demonstration by the community of how to do that kind of thing. And in particular, I'd like to thank Dave Alfano for his contributions, which were significant in terms of getting it going and pushing it through. Next, I'd really like people to think seriously about Memorial Day on Monday. There will be a ceremony at the townhouse at 12 noon, at the lawn in front of the townhouse. I know that people like myself who grew up in the middle of people training for D-Day and too often training to go to their deaths, it has a particular significance for us. Next, I'd like to remind people that the Comprehensive Plan project launch will be on YouTube on Tuesday, on Tuesday the 6th, I think, at 7:30. And it would be great if people would get involved, because if we want a really good new comprehensive plan, we have to become involved as a community. If we're not involved, then we're at the mercy of a few people. And that's not what a comprehensive plan is supposed to be about. In terms, the next thing, I would like to, I've got a resolution here I'd like approval to, honoring Lisa Smith, as I know her, and I'd like to read it. Whereas the Honorable Lisa Margaret Smith served as United States Magistrate Judge for the Southern District of New York in the Charles L. Briand Federal Building and the United States Courthouse in White Plains, having been originally appointed in 1995 and completing her fourth term in 2020, while additionally serving as Chief Magistrate Judge for the Southern District of New York from 2006 to 2008. And whereas Judge Lisa Margaret Smith is active as a member of the boards of editors of law journals, has served in federal bar and federal magistrate judges associations, was honored in 2014 to receive the Judith S. K. Access to Justice Award from the Women's Bar Association of the State of New York, and in 2018 to receive the K. Crawford Murray Award from the New York State Bar Association's Committee on Women in the Law, and has been an adjunct professor at the Elizabeth Howe Law School at Pace University since 2006. And whereas Judge Lisa Margaret Smith participates in events to educate children about the courts, including visits to the courthouse by school and scout groups, advising the Rhinebeck High School mock trial team and the Westchester Women's Bar Association's Take Your Children to Work Day program, and is a member of the South Salem Presbyterian Church, where she is serving her second 6-year term on the session, and is an outstanding soloist and member of the choir. And whereas Judge Lisa Margaret Smith took on the role of Westchester Women's Bar Association president when she retired as a United States Magistrate Judge in 2020, and is now concluding her 1-year term in this position. And whereas this dedication to community and public service is an example to all and is deserving of public notice, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Lewisboro in the county of Westchester in the state of New York, in recognition of the worthy service of Judge Lisa Margaret Smith to her community, the legal profession, and the state of New York, does hereby offer the thanks of its populace to Judge Lisa Margaret Smith, and be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this May 24th, 2021 town board meeting for future generations to see, and that a copy be presented to Judge Lisa Margaret Smith. Can I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just want to take a moment. I've appeared before Magistrate Smith. Over the years, she's an outstanding jurist, and glad to have this this terrific pronouncement before us here today.
The reason for doing it now is her retirement as head of the Westchester Women's Bar Association. Next, our COVID numbers in town have gone down since our last meeting from 9 to 6. And if you take, which is what I like to look at, the 5 contiguous towns in the northeast of Westchester, we have in fact halved our number of cases during since the last board meeting. At the last board meeting, that this grouping had 51 cases, and now it has 25. That is looking reasonably good to me. Finally, that's me. I've said my piece under communications. I'd like to propose approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the April 26th, 21 meeting. Can I have a second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Under new business, I'd like to propose a resolution approving Suburban Refuse's application for a license to collect and dispose of refuse recyclables. I should mention, I think, that seeing as it confused me a little, the name of the applicant is given as Sani Pro Disposal Services Corp, DBA Suburban Carting. Can I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to just throw out a point here, and not to slow this down or anything, but it occurred to me, because this question comes up again and again, that people are always asking, where do the recyclables go? And if we're in the more to the south in the county, we would know the answer. You know, it's going to the county MRF. But up here with the private carters, it's not so certain. We think a lot of it goes over to the county separation center, but not sure. It would be nice to, maybe as part of the license process, to just ask them that question. You know, maybe that could go on the form or something. That
it goes, I think it says here that they take it, and Janet, correct me if I'm wrong.
Is it on the form? Then I'm glad.
Yeah, that they take it to City Carting in Somers, which doesn't really answer your question, because you'd like to know where it ends up.
Yeah. Because that's but it sounds like it would end up at City's ultimate their processing center in Stamford.
That's what I would assume.
All right, so maybe
and the people
again,
not to
hold this up, but I'm just saying we could refine that question maybe going forward on the list, just to make sure of that. But that's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead, vote. Yes.
All right.
All those in favor?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'd forgotten that. Did I have a second?
Yes.
You did.
Discussion? We had it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I would like to go on to a discussion of the American Rescue Plan Act. Based on the Treasury guidance issued on May 10th, everybody thinks this has been around forever, but the interim guidance was issued on May 10th. And based on that and a webinar.
I think it was actually May 17th, Peter.
Well, they're saying May 10th
Yeah,
in the document in front of me.
Yeah, okay. On the website doc, it says publication date 5/17.
All right. That would be typical of the confusion surrounding this. I listened to a fairly long webinar given by a lawyer from the Association of Towns, and I've also had subsequent correspondence with them. And one thing dominates, that everything that has been published so far is subject to change. And that's why it's called an interim report.
The interesting thing is that they call it a final interim report.
All right. And
when do we get the interim final report?
Yes, that's what I'm waiting for.
Nobody is quite sure. All right. But I do know that everything is subject to change, including the dollar allocation for the town. Not just our town, all towns. All of the smaller towns, not the allocation for the cities. Those are firm. Here is where I believe we are now, as it applies to Lewisboro. It appears that our public health expenditures since the 3rd of March of this year can be paid for out of this fund. Now,
Peter, can we just frame it? This is the one, as of now, we're talking about, I think, what, $1.37 million?
Yes.
And so what you're discussing is based upon what we know now, how we can spend the money subject to whatever.
Yes,
revision.
and all I'm saying is how we can spend it. The odds are, because this is still very much based, the categories are very much based on the congressional bill, that these categories will not change.
So as of right now, we still don't have it, and we still don't know for certain how we can spend it.
Right. Well, we don't know how much we're going to get. And we don't necessarily know the details of how we can spend it. But we've got a broad outline of how we can spend it.
Thank you.
And the first is we can support public health expenditures made by the town since the 3rd of March of this year. Basically, those are a few PPE costs, but mainly the costs of adjustment to offices to protect the health of employees. The second area, and a far bigger area, is reductions in revenue over a 4-year period. In Lewisboro's case, probably 2020 to 2023, based on shortfall versus the 2019 base, which is automatically increased at 4.1% each year. That should be a substantial amount of money. I would hope it's something around 800,000, 600,000, 800,000. And that can be spent. Well, first of all, that goes into the general fund, but it specifically says that the town can transfer that money into the highway fund and use it on roads. And I know that there are a lot of, the one thing which I can get total consensus on in this town is we need to spend more money on roads. The next area is water. We can spend money on building, maintaining, and upgrading water, including our water districts. That's quite important because there'd been some debate earlier on about whether water districts were included and whether it had to be a town-wide system. The next area is sewer. Exactly the same, building, maintaining, and upgrading, and it includes sewer districts. Finally, they're saying we can spend it on broadband, but granted that those are privately owned in Lewisboro, the broadband entity is included for rural areas where there just is no broadband. Finally, I'd just like to remind you that this whole thing is subject to change, but I've had a lot of questions suggesting we're just sitting on our backsides. We're not. We are waiting to get more and more information out of the Treasury and to figure out exactly what we can do. While we're on the subject of federal money, I will be visiting with Representative Sean Patrick Maloney on Thursday to thank him very much for including 1.8 million for Oak Ridge in his earmarks proposal, and to ensure that nobody takes it out again before it actually gets to Congress to be passed. The problem is we're going to have to wait some time until we know exactly whether that has been passed by Congress. It'll be part of the budget. And it's a question of whether the budget, how effectively Congress handles the budget.
As I understand it, Peter, that's one of 10 projects that the congressman approved for submission to the House Appropriations Committee, and that's where it's at now, making its way.
Well, it's through the Town Appropriations Committee. I mean, the Appropriations Committee, and it now has to get approved by the budget, by Congress.
Yes.
That is yes. Sorry, I didn't mention the other 9 things because, quite honestly, none of them, I'm afraid, are money that will be spent in Lewisboro.
And the 1.8 million, just to be clear, that was specific for Oak Ridge.
Yes, very specific for Oak Ridge.
Mitigation.
And for PFOS. I mean, it is not wildly for Oak Ridge. It's for that, for the purpose of getting that out of the water supply.
Do we have any idea what the timetable will be about hearing further on the American Rescue Act money?
I think we should hear, we're hoping to hear this week. That doesn't mean we will necessarily hear this week. We were supposed to hear last week.
Okay.
And that's the date which is still lying around somewhere, but it didn't happen. I'm hoping it will happen this week. I am hoping that the details, the final details, come out pretty fast too.
Okay. So it could be any time now.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. There is nothing to pass on that. Does anybody want to comment or ask questions? I have to admit that following this is consuming a certain amount of my time. The basic Treasury document is 151 pages. And that plus attending the webinar and then figuring out on the stuff I'm not sure about with the lady giving the webinar has taken a fair amount of time.
And Peter, I'll make sure that that document is placed on our website. So if anyone wants to
What, the whole 151 pages?
Well, it's actually 134, at least my version.
I think you put it in smaller print or something.
And you were correct on the May 10th, May 11th. What happened was on May 17th, that's when it was published in the Federal Register.
Okay, sorry. But somehow I had that other date in front of me.
Yep.
From the Association of Towns. Mm-hmm. And I must admit, I've got to know the lawyer at the Association of Towns quite well as we've trudged through this process. I'm hoping that will be more useful as we progress. Next item, if nobody else wants to chime in, is I'd like to propose a resolution to accept the retirement of Police Officer William Frattarola. And can I do this? No, I think they've got to be 2 separate resolutions, right?
Yes.
I'd like to propose the first one, and can I have a second?
I second, as long as we're going to rehire him.
Yes, we are. because that you'd have got in the first resolution if I could have done it my way.
Yeah.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Second, I'd like to propose that we approve reappointment of police officer William Frattarola to the Lewisboro Police Department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to propose a resolution approving the use of SurveyMonkey by the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. Hopefully this will work for them because it is by far the cheapest way of surveying people.
So moved.
Second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just put a quick add on here because it's relevant at this point in time? I just wanted to share oh, never mind. I'll do it during the polling of the board. I want to share their for June 8th. They're going to have their project launch, their public project launch, and there's a YouTube link.
Yes, and I thought I just said that.
Sorry, so I was going to share the visual, but
do it again. Oh, the visual, do that again. Do
yeah,
it.
okay. I'll try. Give me another try here. I did it. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, great.
So shift it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we were able to get the link onto the website, perhaps, but this will also be going out on social media, and that link should take you right there. Also, so that's it. And hopefully you'll be seeing this around. It's a little map of Lewisboro with the current zoning. It's really nice. So they look forward to having lots of people participate and then participate via that survey that they will be getting out soon now that we've approved the purchase of the SurveyMonkey.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to propose a resolution that we adjust our fee schedule so that we charge $175 per application to cut for a permit to cut trees. I am very open to discussion on the 175. I have discussed it with Joe, our building inspector, and the figure has been chosen so that we believe it will cover the costs of those applications.
And yeah, so that's what did he talk more about what those costs were?
Yeah, there are three costs. There is the processing cost, relative minor, by the building department. There is the cost of the arborist at $100 an hour. And there has to be an allowance for Jan Johannesson, our wetlands inspector, to take a look at things and decide if we're on a steep slope or not. And probably, I think, if we're in the middle of a wetland or not, which either of those would give him ability to sort of overrule anything which came out of the arborist. Now, so that's roughly $100, $50 for Jan and $25 for the building department. Now, those amounts will not be charged in every case. On the other hand, I suspect there will be a good many cases which are way more expensive than that. And until we've got more experience, I don't want to try to guess on those. If you want to go a bit lower, you can.
When you say there'll be cases that are going to be much more expensive, you mean we would be charging 175, but it could actually be costing us more?
Yes.
Okay.
And if as we get more experience, we can change the fee by simple resolution. It doesn't have to be a new law. It's just a resolution.
There's got to be some certainty. I think we should have a certain amount for a certain amount of time, and then we could take a look at it.
Okay, let's do it for until Jan 1, 2022, by when we will have to reapprove the rates anyway.
Okay.
You re-adopt your fee schedule at the beginning of the year?
Fee schedule at the beginning of the year. Sorry, I should have
No,
said
fair
fee.
enough. That's the best time to revisit it.
All right, well, let's, I'll make a motion for $150 for, until January 1, 2022.
Okay, we're going to be out of pocket for the next 6 months. Thanks, Rich. Second.
Maybe we'll see our luck.
I'll second 150. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not too worried about that because, in fact, I and Joe had quite a sort of discussion about a friendly discussion about which figure was the right one, 150 or 175. Next thing, I would like to propose that we work on a new law, and if possible, that we work on it fast enough to be able to to get it through, let's put it, relatively quickly. The new law is I would like a 1 mile radius around an existing gas station for any new gas station. In other words, gas stations have got to be a mile apart. And that's a law I would like Greg to draft. And if possible, I would like to move very quickly to a public hearing on that law. Greg, do you think you could get that to me in time for me to set a public hearing for the next meeting?
I can get it to you rather quickly because what you're proposing would be modifying the language of an existing provision.
Yes, I mean,
of your code.
We've got in there, I think, 100 feet at the moment.
I think it's 200, but it does have to be referred to the planning board because it's zoning. So there is a window there for planning to review it and make its recommendations, whatever those may be, to your board. So I wouldn't put the public hearing any nearer than a month. And obviously, if the planning board doesn't get back.
You're saying the public hearing should be after they've got back with their comments?
100%.
Okay.
You have an obligation to refer it to them, and I think you have I believe
an obligation to refer it to the county then.
The 239M as well, but actually it's a shorter window. I think your planning is a 45-day window, and 239M is usually 30 days. So if you set it out for a month, then you can, if you don't have the comments back, you can always adjourn public hearing until such time as you have the county's response, which typically no action, but I can't say, and the planning board's report and recommendation as to what they feel the language of the law should be or what the impact of it is. So I wouldn't do it any earlier than a month.
There is no point. What are you suggesting we should do tonight? Virtually nothing?
What I would suggest that you do is have me send the board the proposed modification that you and I spoke about over the weekend.
Okay.
And then if that's the case, it can be sent to the planning board at your next meeting. And then you can set a public hearing after that. At least you're telescoping the 239M, your planning board referral, and your public hearing that way. But I can have the language is not a heavy lift for the textual modifications at all. So everybody can let discuss with it, or weigh in on it, and then you can refer it at the next meeting.
It
What's
is
the-
basically 200 feet becomes 1 mile.
Basically,
So you want to increase the minimum distance between, what exactly you want to do?
Increase the minimum distance between gas stations. When one gas, increase when somebody wants to put in a new gas station, it has to be a mile from an existing one.
Maybe you could just send a letter of what we're trying to do to the planning board and they could come back with a specific recommendation.
Do that in lieu.
Well, I think that's our recommendation, right? So we're making a recommendation. The planning board's going to review it.
No, but maybe it's just get input from the planning board as to, just talk about what we're trying to do. We're trying to increase the minimum distance and see what they say as far as quantifying it.
Well, all right, but in fact, I'd like it to be a mile.
Right, so that would be just tossing it to the planning board, but it sounds like we have a specific recommendation. Or at least that's what Peter's asserting, and.
Right, what are
Tony
you,
agreeing.
what are you basing the mile on as opposed to something else?
We just don't need gas stations within a mile of each other.
It'd be a kilometer if we lived anywhere else, I think it's just.
Yeah, but it would really confuse people to pass a law.
No, I just mean like it's just a standard measurement that, like I think that's why he chose a mile, or why we're choosing a mile. Quarter mile, half mile, 3/4 of a mile, a mile. So it's between half a mile and a mile. Let's go with a mile.
I think,
That's
in
what I imagine.
fact, I would like it to be rather larger than a kilometer.
Well, I mean, is there any,
Not a kilometer, a meter, sorry.
if you're talking about a mile, then
It is
because you
larger
don't
than
want
a kilometer.
Can you have, just conceptually, can you have a prohibition on any new gas stations?
No, I don't want to, because there is one area of town where you live, Rich,
Yeah,
which really needs a gas station.
agreed.
That shopping center could really blossom, I believe, if people, particularly in terms of eateries, if we could put a sign on Route 684 saying gas and food and drink and whatever you like at the next exit.
Supposedly
We
they're going to be
can't
able to
put that up until there's a gas station.
they're going to be able to do that with the new electric car chargers that they're putting in. Is that right, Tony?
That's correct. So as long as they're fast chargers, the DOT will put a EV charging sign and food.
With due respect to Dan, I would love to believe that more than half the cars coming up 684 are totally electric vehicles.
In 30 years, they will be.
Oh, it's not going to
I
take
didn't
30
say,
years.
I think it's going to be
Nothing-
sooner than
nothing like
30
30
years.
Well, great.
But at the moment, it's not true.
How many
Mhm.
years do you estimate, Dan?
Does Dan estimate?
Yes, I'm asking Dan.
Oh, I think in 10 years, we're going to be already past this tipping point where gas cars are like, the exception.
So we're
Yeah,
talking
but-
about when my little one's a sophomore in high school.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dan, but on
Yeah.
new
But then, I'm not
purchases-
against them putting in a gas station there in Golden's Bridge if that's going to
In the
help
meantime,
them out. Personally, I wouldn't want to be investing in that right now because you'd have a lot of sunken assets that wouldn't have any use, but
Well, there
that's
was
fine.
a Texaco which closed, I think, about 20 years ago that was there. So
and which I used to use regularly on my way up north. So I'm very well
you
aware.
must have been in the minority if it closed.
What?
You must have been in the minority if it closed.
I don't know why it closed, quite honestly.
I think it closed because it's on, it wasn't it on Mercedes' own property? Mercedes wanted them out?
Yeah. And I think two things probably happened. There is no way back onto the highway there. And secondly, I've forgotten what I was going to say, what you said, Jane. I still would like to leave the flexibility for a gas station over at Golden's Bridge. What I am really trying to avoid, all of this is a way of saying why I don't favor a total ban on new gas stations.
So the mile helps to stop proliferation in one hamlet, but doesn't exclude a hamlet which is without a gas station from.
Right.
I think
Well, there hasn't been any issue with it. So in the last 20 years, nobody's proposed having a gas station in Golden's Bridge. I presume it's for some reason.
I don't know.
I think there has been some discussions, Rich, more recently with the shopping center, but very early stages, didn't go anywhere yet.
Well,
I don't think the shopping center, the reason it's come up over the last 2-3 years, I think, is mainly that prior to that, the shopping center had not really pushed for a sign on 684 saying that that food was available at their in their shopping center at that exit.
Yeah, took the Hamlet organization to be nudging them on these different things, I think.
I mean, if you guys don't want to do it, I mean, if you believe we should do a complete ban, it doesn't really affect Peter Parsons as a private citizen. But as town supervisor, I think it would be a good idea to have a gas station in Golden's Bridge.
Well, my inclination would be to just get input from the planning board. Let them chime in based upon what they think we should do.
Well, they will get a chance to chime in after we've passed it. But otherwise, you're going to make this process so damn long.
Not after we passed it, after we have referred it.
Yes.
Right. So
you're saying
it's the same thing. I mean, they could come back and say it should be 2 miles, a half mile, whatever they intended, rather than going in with nothing, we're just putting a number in there.
So let's go in with the mile, see what they say.
Sounds good, Peter. Let's recommend a mile and have the planning board review it.
Okay, and Greg is going to write that law, pass it to us, and I will probably send it directly to the planning board for them to think about it and have input. Because I'm not quite sure when their next meeting is. But they have a monthly schedule, and I want to be sure we get on that. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Oh, okay. Old business. Is Darcy Ridlam here, or the Garden Club? Darcy. Ah, good. Darcy, you wanted to make a presentation to the board.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Lewisboro. Thank you for listening to me. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Lewisboro Garden Club, and we had previously sought the board's approval for examining and exploring the triangle located at Boughton and Post Office Road. It's a very prominent and probably one of the largest triangles in town. We have started exploring it, we've made multiple visits. We have the advantage of very experienced and knowledgeable and master gardeners within our club, but also Jim Nordgren, naturalist and environmental consultant, has been helping us. He lived across the street at the farm from this triangle, so he is intimately familiar with what is growing there. And he has been coming with us to a lot of our field trips to the garden. And there are incredible amounts of wonderful native plant growth going on there right now. We've done a lot of removal of the invasives, and the triangle is looking spectacular if you haven't driven by it lately. I call it kind of a bipolar triangle. One side is very brown and the other side is green and lush and gorgeous. We would like to start putting down some wildflower seeds in the brown side, which is the northernmost side, which is the smaller corner of the triangle. And also we would like to keep it open so that we can put down some plants as we start removing a lot of the invasives. Bare earth is a gardener's nightmare and it invites more invasives. So we would like to get the board's approval to start developing the triangle and making it into a native pollinator-friendly meadow field for all of us to enjoy.
You see that on my phone? Yes, I think you can. For anybody who might not. So it's the mobile station, and then, you know, you go up from 35 to the mobile station, and it's that triangle right there.
Right.
Thank you.
Darcy, thank you. I've got two questions. Do you have the endorsement of our police department? And do you have the endorsement of our highway department? Because I don't drive that triangle every day, or I don't make the turn every day, but I do make it fairly often. And I've always felt that that was not the safest intersection in town.
Yes, so before we even started exploring it, I had reached out to the police department and the highway department. I have incredible members on the Lewisboro Garden Club that have been steering me in these decisions. And I worked and actually toured the location with Joe Posadas of the highway department just this week, but I have been in communication with him regularly throughout this process. And any plantings or seed will be at least 15-foot setback from any roadway, which is what they have requested. I don't know if it was coincidental or because the garden club started looking at this triangle, but the highway department has done incredible amounts of work to this triangle in the last month or so. They've taken out a very ugly barrier, road, what is it called? The road guardrail, and it's looking really great. They put down a lot of grass seed at the bottom to help us in our efforts, I guess, and also to just make the garden a nicer, have a nicer look. I don't know if it was coincidental or because the garden club started asking for town board approval. But they've done a lot of work that has already made, I think that was a huge contributing factor to the beauty of the garden that we're trying to clean up.
And the garden club would maintain it, or are you going to get the highway department to agree to maintain it?
So we don't mow any triangle. That's either done by Joel or the highway department. And according to Joe Posadas of the highway department, he is going to continue mowing the 50-foot area regularly, and he is also going to clear cut the entire center section at least annually.
But are you going to put plantings there?
Yes, so the protected plantings, most of them will die off annually every year. But trees, and we won't be planting any trees, but there are some beautiful native specimens that are there right now that we are going to try to protect. And if they're not appropriate for the highway department, we're going to transplant when they would have the greatest chance of survival. There are, for example, some dogwood trees, some black cherry, hickory trees, hawthorn trees, crabapple trees that we would, and dogwoods, of course, that we would like to protect, but we can't move them now. It's just too late in the season.
Okay, but when you actually have a specific plan for what you're going to do, I'd like to make sure that both highway and the police continue to have a favorable opinion of what you're doing.
Absolutely. And yes, every step of the way, they will be consulted, but these are just, nothing is going to be high or in any way obstructing driver views, sightlines. And that is something that was requested of the highway department. I work, like I said, with Joe Posadas, who is with the highway department, that has been, like I said, he met with me this week to make sure that we don't do anything to interfere with their work and that we won't be putting anything into an area that they have plans for.
So the plants are sort of specifically selected so they're not going to be too high or too obstructive.
Right. Well, there's a 15-foot setback as required by the highway department from any roadway. Also, I understood any of our triangles in town, we don't put any trees in. We don't, even in the center, because it could obstruct sight lines and create a hazardous condition. And that's true of this triangle as well, even though it is so huge and there is a tree already in there. I don't think anyone has any designs to cut that one tree left down. But the trees that are naturally occurring there, we do plan to move and relocate to a safer area, whether it's off-site or I don't even think we're going to continue it in that garden, but they'll probably have to be moved elsewhere to allow them to thrive and live, because they've been cut down for the past 20 years to 3 inches. The clear cutting that's been going on with that triangle.
You know what, I think actually, in my impression of that triangle, is the most hazardous part of it is the yield sign heading towards the, I guess we'd call it the east, where people tend to swing in from the Walkabuck area fairly quickly. And then, it's almost more about the construct of the, the signage and stuff than any obstruction. There's plenty of, sight lines and everything, but it still feels a little bit dicey there. And we might even look at that signage.
Have you driven by in the last, I want to say like 4 weeks, Dan, from that direction? Because that was what was changed. The sight lines leaving Walkabuck, making a right on Boughton, going towards 35 is what highway, changed about this triangle in the last month.
I noticed driving home at night, because it's just so much easier to see the headlights.
Yeah, the guardrail is
Okay,
down, it's
unreoriented.
gone. There's very low growing grass there right now. So it looks to me like it's a pretty clear sight line. And that is the work that I was discussing earlier that the highway had recently done. And it made the triangle even more beautiful. So we were all for it.
Joe Tanzi has his hand up. I think he wants to maybe say something. Should we let him on?
That might be a good idea because he is kind of familiar with this kind of thing. Joe?
I'm asking him to unmute. Joe? Tansy?
How about now? We okay?
Yep, we
Yes.
can hear you, Joe.
Well, first off, hats it off to the Garden Club. I think they do wonderful work, of which I'm not a member, but maybe I should become. In the last 6 months, I've been going through Lewisboro looking for really old trees. And I just wanted to say that shagbark hickory that's in the triangle that we're talking about is approximately 232 years old.
What?
Yes, 232 years old. I am looking for a tree in Lewisboro that was here before Columbus. I'm not there yet, but I'm up to a tree so far that's 285 years old. So that we have some old trees, and that triangle has a 232-year-old hickory. So it's worth preserving, and I'm hats off to the Garden Club for beautifying that triangle. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to comment?
I think it's great.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to give you our blessing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to accept the MS4 annual and interim reports. Damn it, I can't do this. I promised you, Janet, that I wouldn't swear at the beginning of the evening. I've just broken it. Tony, can you propose the MS4 resolution for me?
Sure. I propose that the supervisor sign the MS4 annual and interim report resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to toss it to you now, Tony, to discuss smoke.
Yeah, so this has come up again, and I know we've spoken in the past about other options that we have to permit us to do a better job at smoke enforcement. We have the county in the one specific instance that's been raised several times. Westchester County can't do anything about it because they have to see it for themselves. They have to measure it for themselves. And when it happens outside of business hours, they can't send anybody, especially with the limited staffing that they have today. So I was looking over the existing code that we have, and I reviewed this with, I sent some information to Greg. We've exchanged emails on it. I think we spoke about it a couple months back, but I wanted to bring it up to the, just raise it again to see if there's any way that we can take the existing code that applies for commercial zoned areas and modify it to include residential. North Salem did this, Pound Ridge did this as well. We don't need to make a decision now, but I would like to have the board consider that and see. Now, the other aspect of it is to simplify the enforcement. Greg, as you know, there's a requirement to use a specific smoke chart, and there's a process of using that. Are there any other options that we can use to simplify it so that someone that goes out there to take a measurement doesn't have to sit there for an hour, which is what's required under the existing language for commercial, where you need to take a reading every minute for an hour. There's some other situations where it doesn't have to take an hour, but I want to avoid that. So I just bring this up for discussion to see if, folks have reached out to me again about this. And within the last couple of weeks, there's been 2 more incidents. And I'd like to see if there's any way for us to take advantage of the language we have now and expand it to residential applications.
I will admit I've got a couple of concerns. One, we've been trying desperately over the last few weeks to reduce the workload on our building department, yet this would seem to be a way of increasing the workload, because I don't know who else we'd send out to check it. My other concern, which is rather bigger actually, is that I believe there are a very considerable, whereas with outdoor wood-fired furnaces to heat homes and water, we knew basically that there was only one in town. We don't know how many of these there are, but I know that it's a considerable number. I've got 2 neighbors who burn a lot of wood. And one of them, I'm pretty sure, certainly uses it to heat his home and probably uses it to heat water. I've never asked him. We need to be careful that we are not causing what in essence could be a neighbor versus neighbor problem.
Well, can I ask you, Peter, if you've, I also have neighbors and friends who do this with their indoor burners, but have you ever had the amount of smoke and like the problems with untreated?
I've had no problems with either of these.
So me neither.
There is
So I'm
one
wondering,
near to having problems with, but quite honestly, the smoke always seems to go in a different direction to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Goes out into Wilton instead of coming towards me.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when we're problem solving around this, it seems like a specific issue still, right? Tony, is it, I mean, it's not the same amount of smoke, but it's still an egregious amount of smoke, correct?
It's still correct. It's still a lot of smoke. Less often now because it's not cold, but the last few weekends that we are, 2 of the last 3 weekends, I would say, where the temperatures have dropped, there has been, I've seen videos of.
And so do we think that's more because of the placement of the house there, or more what's being burned? Because again, I know a lot of people in my neighborhood do this, and it just, you can tell smoke is coming out, you can smell it, but I would never think to complain about it. Or I don't think it's affecting my health, to be perfectly clear. But from the evidence I've seen, it seems egregious to me, the amount of smoke.
Yeah, I think the topology does not help. And it actually adds to the problem.
I see.
But the amount of smoke that comes out of those smokestacks are, for starters, it's pretty intense. And that could be from burning untreated material and other material. Had complaints about very noxious odors too. So it's not just your typical wood smell.
So I wonder if we can target what they're burning, and this is like really out there, right? Because we're just having a discussion. This is not, we're not writing legislation right now. So this might be really out there, but if we could target what people are burning, and what would allow for like an investigation of what they're burning, and an allowance based upon like your elevation. Like, unfortunately, topology matters. Because when you're below and in a valley, then that's a public health issue. When you're across the street and we're at the same level, or it's rising away, it's not a problem. So in essence, I've been thinking about what Peter said. I don't want to like make it a widespread problem. I think this is a very common practice in town and not one I'm looking to get rid of, but this is still a specific problem that I feel compelled to address.
I mean, this is a classic, clash of rights, right? So one person's right to burn the wood versus someone else's to clean air. And in the case of the commercial code, we drew the line, in a way that I guess we see also in other similar codes around the area. And it's based on that particular test that Tony described. And you know, it just seems to me like if you're going to say we're not going to address it, you're then tacitly weighing in favor of, you know, the right to put out smoke at that level versus somebody else to not experience it. You know, we should be clear about that.
Tony,
Right.
have
I
you
don't-
any idea what the experience of North Salem and the other town, which is the other town that has these?
Pound Ridge. Those are the two that I checked.
All right. What has their experience been with these meters?
So they've been trained on this, what's called a Ringelmann smoke chart.
Yes.
And maybe a simpler way to do it is how DEC does it, which is a what they call an opacity meter, which basically compares the smoke, how opaque it is compared to this meter. And once you hit a certain percentage, then you're, in the case of DEC, but they don't do anything with indoor wood burning units. But if it was for an outdoor unit, they would use this opacity meter. So I think that'll be the simplest way to measure. But to answer your question, the Ringelmann smoke chart is used by Pound Ridge, and Joe checked with the building inspector there, and he hasn't really had a situation where he's needed to use it, but he has been trained on it. So they don't have, at least in the one reach out to Pound Ridge, they don't have or haven't had any complaints that warranted going out with this meter to measure the smoke.
Is there a possibility for a shared service here?
But
It's not- it's just- it's not
share
happening
their
enough.
Ringelmann smoke meter?
We have a neighboring town who's trained in this meter and knows how to do it.
Oh,
That's
just-
what sharing services is, just in case. We
I
talk
know.
about shared services all the time.
I was just joking with you, Jane. Don't worry too much.
So we could
I'm not so worried.
we could pay them to do it, because we're not talking about this happening, you know, more than a few times.
Well,
So-
to Peter's point, you know, if we have this code in the books, are we going to then get, you know, an increase of complaints from someone complaining against their neighbors using a fire pit? That is a concern, right?
But that
I mean,
hasn't happened.
I know, for instance, that I happen to get on with one of my neighbors very well. I know that the neighbor on the other side of him doesn't get on with anybody. So he would almost certainly complain if he had a way to.
Yeah, and the challenge also is if this is happening, you know, in the winter, it's, you know, it was at all hours, but in the summer, you know, the couple of instances that we saw recently, it was at night. And it's going to be tough to get somebody over there to measure this at night unless, you know, if there's a way to allow video footage, and that's a valid, becomes a valid way to gauge whether or not this person or the situation violated the code.
So they're not using this to heat their hot water.
No.
Hmm.
I mean, Greg, I'm assuming video is probably not non-permissible, right? In the court of law, or if somebody wanted to.
What you have to be able to do is, from an enforcement standpoint, be able to establish each and every element of an offense of whatever the prospective code enactment is by observation of your enforcement officer, whether that's your own enforcement officer, whether you share services with a neighboring municipality. So video is possible for use, provided it can be authenticated. I mean, typically those type of local government enforcement actions are done by the testimony of the code enforcement officer directly observing whatever any claimed violation is, whether it's a use of property, whether it's something like this. So you can use means, the test results from whatever you employ, whether it's an opacity meter or the Ringelmann test or the chart, or just what that person is observing on a given day there, that's what you can use. So, but you're bound to establish it beyond a reasonable doubt, even if it's not a crime. It's still the standard that you're going to be held to enforce it in any enforcement proceeding in the local court.
Right.
In fact, if I understand it right, the violation is not really emitting smoke. It is reaching a certain measure on this Ringelmann smoke chart. That is when you could take somebody to court. Below that, whatever it looks like or smells like, you can't.
Yeah, so the chart is a proxy supposedly for
Yes,
a level of smoke.
right. I don't know. I've got my doubts. Maybe I've got my doubts because I live in a part of town where there's quite a lot of use of wood burners.
Can I just interject? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yes.
So let's just say that you were considering moving forward with this, and really the way that Pound Ridge and North Salem have it is they have a very similar code to yours, and yours for performance standards, it just classifies these as these are impermissible, or these are the measuring sticks for performance, for noise, for smoke, for toxic or noxious matter, for vibration, anything to that, in non-residential uses. The other towns just say no use can be established that exceeds these performance standards. So if you did that, one of the first things that your smoke and dust and atmospheric pollutant section says is that the emission of smoke and other particulate matter shall not be permitted regardless of quantity if it will be in any way detrimental to the public health, safety, welfare. That's irrespective of any reading on any chart. Okay, so that's how broad that language is. And right now, the way your code reads, it's only applicable to non-residential uses. All right, so it's not necessary.
Yeah, so Greg, sorry to interrupt. So what you just
No.
said, and I'm looking at it here as well, does that override the measurement of smoke? So if the emission, if we say, okay, that emission that we're looking at right now, regardless of quantity, it says here, if it's detrimental to the public health, which people have told us it is that enough? Or do we still then need to go back and measure that?
It's a much broader standard, and that the way that that's written is that you have much more leeway in enforcing it, because you don't have to meet an objective standard on any type of reading or test. You could have that as well, but the way that that's written, you don't necessarily need it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now right now, as I said, it's only non-residential uses that are subject to that performance standard, and you have noxious matter, you have vibration, you have noise, you have all the other categories of the quality of life altering the presence of activity, right? That I'm just talking about the smoke now, but all of those deal with non-residential uses in your current code only, not residential.
So you were saying that the alternative is a broader statement, which is just generally it's found to be deleterious to people's health.
That's how it is now for non-residential, yeah.
For non-residential. I mean, without the Ringelmann card and all that.
Correct.
I mean, it's, I don't see we have standards for noise, we even have standards for visual stuff, where we find it goes outside the boundaries. And like, are either of those as important as what you breathe?
On the side of doing something, because I've been speaking mainly against doing anything, I believe, though I don't have figures, that there has been a substantial increase in breathing disorders, asthma, etc., over the years in this town. I'm not blaming it on these for a second, but I am saying that that is a reason for being more concerned about the air that people are breathing.
Yeah, and these things are sort of impactful in the aggregate too. So it's not only smoke, but people dusting their driveways with leaf blowers, and just generally keeping that particulate matter suspended. Eventually, it adds up to wherever you can sort of cut back on that is a positive thing.
Or as we discovered, pets.
Slightly different issue, but
caused my son's breathing disorders, which we found out when he went to college where there were no pets and suddenly no breathing disorders either.
Thought, Tony, recall you and I sat in on that session with this person who was specifically working on the smoke issue and particulates issue.
Right.
Would it behoove to bring her or somebody like that to the board to give a little presentation on the effects of smoke and particulate matter in this case, just to get that background out there?
Yeah, we could certainly do that, and maybe even ask her for her opinion. I know she's done a lot of work with other municipalities and helping write the code for some of these, for mitigating these issues, and maybe we can get her opinion. I can share with her our exact code that's written today, as written today for commercial properties. And
Tony, do you want to do that?
I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that.
And invite her to come and give a short presentation.
Okay.
That'll just
in
keep
that
this
case,
moving.
I think we've taken that we've meandered that one about as far as it will meander without getting some more information.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I mean, this is something that keeps popping up, and I've been approached, and so I'm acting on it, and I think this is a good next step, and we'll take it from there.
So we could meander to the second public comment period now, yes?
That's what I was going to do. Does anybody wish to speak?
Yep. So Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to mute. You have 2 minutes.
Am I unmuted, Janet?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I just wanted to comment on that last conversation you had that kind of went all around. And I believe Tony originally brought it up because there continues to be an issue down in a specific area on Todd Road. I'm just trying to think. I remember that the law that you put forth that was adopted, Chapter 165-7, Section C, says that the outdoor wood boilers cannot be used between April 1st and October 31st. So if this particular person, I'm not going to say names, is still using the outdoor wood boiler, isn't it just very easy to say you're in violation?
Yeah, Barbara, it's not the outdoor wood boiler. It's
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
the device, indoor wood stoves.
Okay, my apologies. I thought it was the outdoor wood boiler. Okay, no more comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Simone. I'm asking you to unmute.
We in Diverse Vista have had unsafe drinking water at Oak Ridge for decades. Oak Ridge is suffering. Oak Ridge is not a concept. It consists of human beings who are begging for clean drinking water. Why is the owner of Oak Ridge still building when there is no clean water for the people presently living there? Who gave him that permission? The fact that we are even seriously discussing a third gas station in less than a half mile of the other two that are already in walking distance of each other is disgraceful. And finally, these meetings are serious business. We all take a lot of time out of our lives. I propose council members be forbidden from blacking themselves out when they don't like what they hear. It's rude, unprofessional, and disrespectful. Let's respect the taxpayers of Lewisboro. Let's not forget you represent and work for us, not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Next, I'm asking Carol Cernak to unmute.
Hi, it's me again, Carol Cernak at South Salem, New York, at Farvey Farm. I just want to say I would like to speak to the previous comments about the smoke of noxious matter, quality of life, air pollutants, visual noise. This is all that's going on at the Salt Dome property. I appreciate everything everybody's doing. Highway department is grossly understaffed and not sure what their capabilities are to process the maintenance, timber processing and clean out, drain clean outs, I would ask them to provide details when they ask for their budget. Let's establish this, provide documentation on proposed yardage and square footage. This has to be done before bidding. The town of Lewisboro has history of contaminating state regulated surrounding wetlands at the Salt Dome property. I've been involved with the improper procedure and getting them to fall in line. This is not commercially zoned and sits within our historic district. Only been cleaned up since it has been brought to the attention of the public. Most public comment is that someone is getting kickbacks. Hickory Homes has been making money hand over fist, which
Have you got evidence of a kickback? Because if so, I want to see it.
makes me concerned why Peter Parsons and Peter Rippinger are fighting for their life to keep this going as is.
Okay, so you are
What is the
saying you're
status
getting
of the master plan? Seems to be reactive, proactive for more than 30 years. I would like to thank all the part-time town board members because you've all taken on a task that you probably never imagined. Thank town attorney. Greg, no disrespect, but why aren't you a town member? Why aren't you a resident of the town of Lewisboro? Thank you. Good night, Peter.
Good night, but don't accuse me of being on the take.
Okay, and we have Karen Conti. I'm asking you to unmute, Karen.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Regarding the discussion on, I think it's wood burning stoves, and in our neighborhood, there are several people who have wood burning stoves. Some of them use them to heat their homes, and some of them, I think it's more recreational in the winter, just nice to have a fire. And it's my impression that several of the less efficient stoves, and I think that's how I would classify them, put out an awful lot of smoke pollution to the point where in the winter, not only does it, sometimes it even seeps into our house, but I cannot go outside without having an asthma attack. And so I'm glad that the board is pursuing this. And, just to see, because there's many of us who really feel very restricted, certainly outside and even at times when it's very cold inside. So thank you. And anything that I can do to help you look into this, I'd be happy to do.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Dean, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Back again. Look, hopefully, I don't think that Carol Ciernak's accusing anybody.
Well, that's what she said.
I think she said she's heard that, and maybe that's a backhanded way of saying it, but I don't think anyone's doing that at all. I think it can be very frustrating, though, if you live nearby, hearing about particulates and things like that. That's what we live with.
But I resent being told I'm on the take.
All right, well, hopefully, I don't believe that she meant to say that.
I heard that loud and clear.
All right, well, I can't apologize for it. I can just tell you that I didn't. That was just frustration, and also, I think she said that's what she heard. But anyway, it's just frustrating for everybody here with the dust and the stuff we have to put up with. I give you an update that right now the pile is larger again. It was larger the day before. It's larger again. It's a little bit neater, I would say. Yeah, maybe it still looks terrible, especially from the cemetery. I posted on Lewisboro Citizens a photo. I pulled down a GIS map to just show people the proximity of the state wetlands, the same ones that I guess Carol mentioned were part of a lawsuit years ago because the uncovered salt had leached into them. It's a serious problem. There's no remediation. Also, I think I heard someone say in the last meeting that silt that's cleaned out of our stormwater drains is stored there. That silt, I believe, has all the contaminants from our roadways. So it's something that really should be done. I understand there's something going on in the works, but every day the noise is there, the trucks back up, and the pile's getting larger. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Robin Legenzowski, I'm asking you to mute.
Hi, Tony, where are the 2021 water results that were just for Oak Ridge that were just drawn? I asked you on April 22nd, said you were requested on April 24th. You said you were still waiting. Where's the updated ones?
So let me clarify, Robin. It was in 2020 that you requested. The 2021 water quality report is not out. It won't be out for a while.
Okay, so how
And you
can we?
see the plan that's published will tell you exactly when those tests are performed. So we can't give you test results unless the tests are performed.
So the most recent ones are out,
Yes.
but we have, so that's in the packet, not 2019. It's confusing.
2019 is there. 2020 was posted on the website a couple of weeks ago. I think I just heard it was delivered via mail as well.
Okay, so, and that's, so the 2021 ones, because we're already in May, those can be expected when?
So it'll be next year. Any test that's performed this year will be in the 2021 aggregate water quality report that's been published for the last, I don't know how many years now.
Okay, so is there a way to get them, like, I don't know what, like FOIL request them or something like that so that we can have current?
The only tests that have been performed, as far as I know so far, and I have to go back to the plan to look at them and see when they were expected, or the ones for PFAS, which the health department required that we do in January and then again in February.
Okay.
Whether there's anything planned over the last 5 months for test wise, I don't think there was, but I'll have to look at the plan. But it is published on the website.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Carol already spoke, correct, this time, so we're on to Marissa Beatty. Marissa, I'm asking you to mute.
Hi, Tony. I guess like what we're asking here at Oak Ridge is that the testing that you guys give us, we're supposed to get a water sample every year. Every year that water sample is read. You do different samples throughout the year, and at the end of the year, you give us one full report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So on the new
at the following year for the year before, yes.
right. So in 2020, why are we looking at results that were obtained in 9 of 2018 for 2020? That's the question.
Because it's a test result that is not done frequently, I believe.
Okay, so but even on an annual basis, we should have a water sample every year. We allot $14,000 in on just Oak Ridge Water District budget in testing, lab testing. Okay, we spent close to 12,000. I think 9/30 of 2020, you finally decided to show us the financials for our water district. There's no way that we don't have accurate testing. So what we are officially requesting is a real accurate sample from our water. If you would like, we can do it ourselves, and I can submit my water sample, and then I can submit, and instead of paying my water bill, I'll pay my water sample bill, and then we can figure out what's in our water. because what you're giving Oak Ridge is not accurate information. That's what Robin's saying. That's what we're requesting. Accurate information on Oak Ridge water. Stop giving us excuses. Stop telling us everything. Just give us real accurate data, dude.
So
Enough
it's
is
not-
enough.
Yeah, it's not, it is accurate data. Our tests are governed by the Westchester County Department of Health. The plan that's in place for testing, they're the ones that tell us when to test. And that's
Okay, but annually, as our water supplier, you should be giving us a water quality report annually.
And you do
Telling
get one
me
annually.
every single thing in my water, chlorine, sodium, everything accurate. You're taking the sample. Why is your testing not accurate? On other water samples, there's a chain of command on who obtains the water sample, who touches it. Does it go directly to the lab? Who has touched it in process? There's nothing attached for 2020. I'm sorry there's a pandemic, but you guys are still running a town.
Marissa, what I would recommend, call the Department of Health and they will tell you.
That is not my job. That is your job. I pay my water bill.
Yes, but
This is your job. You give us, no, we want answers.
What we
So
have.
the time is up.
That's fine.
Would you like to-
Our time is always up. 2 minutes. We never get an answer either. Great.
The answers are there, Marissa, but you can call me directly and I can discuss it with you.
It appears that's it.
Okay, can I close the session?
Yep.
All right, I'd like to move on to approval of claims. I'd like to propose that we approve them. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Approved? I mean.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I would like to announce that I'd like to poll the board first of all. Rich?
Good. Thank you. Few things. First, I want to get an update. I think where we are as far as resuming, or for me, commencing in-person town board meetings, along with some type of live stream interactive capability. Where are we with that?
We aren't at the moment. I've just been discussing it with individual people, that's all.
Okay, I think we should move towards that for next month. And I think we should move to in-person, and as well as ensure we could have some kind of interactive capability at this live stream, or however we can do it, so people can participate that way if they like. There was comments about proposed gas station in Vista, and also programming that the library is co-sponsoring. I just want to encourage people, if they have issues or concerns about that, please participate and make your voices heard before the planning board and or before the library board, because they're responsible for those issues. And I know that firsthand because I've been on both of those, library board as well as planning board. So please make sure you communicate either by letter or however, or participated meetings to bring that to their attention. With the Salt Dome property, I want to thank everybody who made the time to speak with me personally, and so that I can get a handle on things, and we have a plan of action to move things forward, which we're going to get moving on. Last but not least, look forward to seeing everybody on Memorial Day at the Townhouse flagpole to commemorate Memorial Day. Freedom is not free. Encourage everyone to be there. Pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our country. Thank you.
Dan?
I just want to say I would love for the atmosphere in our meetings to change a little bit. That we have a number of people feel that they're dedicated to essentially attacking a colleague on the board every meeting, and it's getting very dark. This is not appropriate. You're not doing something positive for the town, or for the improvement of the way we're governing. So I hope it stops. That's the only thing I want to say tonight.
I apologize, Dan, for losing my cool.
No, that's hard to keep it, but anyway.
Jane.
Yes, I echo Dan's sentiments and also have the same desire to have that be all I say. And at the same time, I had planned to present a bunch of things here at the polling of the board, community events going on, and now it just seems I'm uncertain as to whether I can even announce community events, because I feel badly for the people whose event it is, because, you know, all of a sudden it feels very tense. And it should feel joyful to talk about community events and bringing people out. And it shouldn't feel like, oh, I don't want to mention this fundraiser at the town park because people are mad. Yeah. So in any case, I am going to go ahead and say a couple of things. One is that our website is updated and beautiful. I feel I'll notice that the community newsletter that came out on Friday is also updated. So I want to thank the clerk's office, Janet and Jen. It looks really good. Thank you so much. And I've been working closely with them since it's my first foray into having a page and a task force, and they've been super responsive, and I just think it's looking great. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Then I wanted to just go ahead and share what it's looking like with people. So I wanted to share this if possible. Let me see. This is what the town website is looking like. And I want to bring people's attention again to the June 26th event, Pride in the Park, the 2 p.m. drag queen story hour. I do invite you to take up Rich's, but I'd also like to give some information. Drag Queen Story Hour is a nationally recognized program that has a Westchester chapter. It is about inclusiveness and diversity. If you feel it is not acceptable for yourself and your family and your children, there is no need to come. I can promise you 2 years ago when it was at the Lewisboro Library that it was well attended and my 3 children were engaged the entire time and talked about it the whole time and talked about it a lot afterwards and a lot about how good they felt about it. And it gave them this freedom that they don't have in other places around here. And also we have a relationship with Angel Electra at this point. She lives in Yonkers. She's a Westchester drag queen. She's been to our Lewisboro Library before, and she just sent me an invoice saying how excited she is to come back to Lewisboro. So I am very much hoping that we can remember that Angel is a human being who is coming to provide a service that we have asked for. And I hope that the board will be able to find it in their hearts to be openly welcoming of her. And so I had to address the Drag Queen Story Hour, which was not a part of what I was going to talk about tonight, because there is one more thing I'm going to share, regardless of whether or not it makes people angry. Because I think people are working hard on this Pride event, and I think it deserves to be shared. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. This is the newest addition to some of the things we're going to be offering. This is going to be a Zoom event. You have to register for the Zoom link. It's called There for Each Other, a Lewisboro conversation on LGBTQIA+ allyship. It's June 15th from 8 to 9:30. So this is kind of a save the date. And this is from the organizer. We're excited to announce There for Each Other, a Lewisboro conversation on LGBTQIA+ allyship, June 15th, 8 to 9:30 p.m. Want to be a supportive LGBTQIA+ ally, but not sure how to start? Want to be able to speak to your friends or children about LGBTQIA+ topics, but scared of saying the wrong thing? Join Lewisboro and our neighbors in a judgment-free community dialogue led by current and former Lewisboro LGBTQIA+ community members and John Jay alums. This conversation will have two parts. A, an open question and answer on any and all LGBTQIA+ topics, and B, a neighbor-to-neighbor conversation on how to create a safer, more supportive community for LGBTQIA+ residents and children. Whether you're just starting your allyship journey or well on your way, come join your neighbors for a supportive, inspiring evening of learning together. We welcome all residents of Lewisboro and our neighboring towns. I'm gonna leave it at those words. Thank you.
Tony.
Yeah, just a couple things. So I just want to thank you, Peter, for giving us that update on the America Rescue Plan. Looks like there is some progress being made there, and hopefully we'll have all of those funds, or if not most of it, available to us for use in the town. And thank you also for following up with Congressman Maloney's office. Let's see. The other thing I have is, Memorial Day. We already spoke about that. Salt Dome. I just want to thank, we listened to the public. We made some progress, and I just want to thank Rich for now as Highway Department liaison for taking it to the next step. So we're making progress there. We're listening to everyone, and we'll figure things out and hopefully have an update in the near future. As far as Oak Ridge, it comes up at all the town board meetings. I would like for people to come to me in between town board meetings rather than wait for the town board meetings to express their concerns. And then we can have a conversation over whatever your concerns are. So I'm here. Thank you all very much. And that's all I have.
All right. In that case, I'd like to announce that the next town board meeting will be on Monday, June 14th, 2021 at 7:30 via remote access. I'd like to propose that we go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
What are you going to discuss?
Oh, we're going to discuss personnel and legal issues. Specifically, the appointment of somebody to a town committee and legal issues.